And you've been reporting on the beauty retail chain Mecca this year. Tell me, do you shop there?
I used to shop there. However, a number of years ago, I stopped. And I think the reason for that is because up until that point, maybe I went a couple of times. I'm not an avid makeup user, but I found the convenience of it to be fantastic. It sort of started from me buying a mascara into spiraling all the way up to shampoos and conditioners, which ended up costing me a lot of cash. And it kind of prompted me to look at myself in the cold, hard light of day and go, perhaps there's some other options out there and I might want to consider them. I have done a lot of dupe purchasing, which I know is very unpopular in the makeup industry. But cost of living is a real thing. And I feel that there are a lot of cheaper alternatives out there. Not to say that the products that Mecca stocks aren't fabulous or very good quality. I think there is a pretty good range out there as well, though.
And that's the thing about Mecca, isn't it? They don't tend to go on sale or do a huge amount of promotions outside of their membership program.
Exactly. And in my reporting, that's been one of the most consistent consumer concerns about the brand. I guess you're already looking at products that have a high price point, and that's because they're luxury products. You walk into a Mecca store and you can instantly see that the service is fantastic and the products are also fantastic. So, nonetheless, there's a lot of online, I think, discussion about a lack of sales, uh, and further that sort of stems from a lack of competition, I guess, as well.
Mecca is, of course, one of Australia's biggest privately owned companies. It was started by Jo Hogan in 1997. She had a single shop in South Yarra in Melbourne selling just a couple of products. That's now scaled up to hundreds of stores across Australia and New Zealand. What can you tell me about Jo Hogan?
Jo Hogan is, by all accounts, one of the most successful and effective business people in Australia. As you pointed out, she started with one store about 30 years ago and has grown this business into one of the most successful retail businesses in Australia. And I think really interestingly, she has effectively taken from underneath David Jones, Myer, big department stores, an offering that they had really hoped to deliver to customers. But I think over the last 10 to 15 years, we've really seen products, makeup products being offered by David Jones, Myers, not be able to compete with Mecca for sure. And, physically, I think her presence in Melbourne, in particular in Burke Street, right opposite David Jones, is a pretty good indication that she's won that war.
There have been persistent rumours that Jo Hogan is going to leave Mecca, but she's indicated she's not going anywhere, and in fact she has suggested that she has plans to take the company global beyond Australia and New Zealand. Have you been able to get to the bottom of where those rumours are coming from, and are there any truth to them?
Jo Hogan emphatically denies that she is selling her business and, in fact, insists that she is in this and she has no plans to sell or to leave the business. I've asked a number of times if they're planning on floating the business on the ASX, considering it is so successful. Again, they deny that and they want to stay private. So the only thing I can say about this is that Hogan is ambitious. She has expressed interests in expanding the business globally, and certainly, I think she'll probably over the next few years look at expanding those plans.
You reported that the company was late in filing its financial documents over the past couple of years. It's now done so, and those records have revealed a revenue of over $1 billion. Did it face consequences for its lateness?
We're not sure yet. What I can say though is that the corporate cop ASIC is investigating that practice. And, I think I recently checked in with them this week, in fact, to ask if there was any updates that they could give me. They said not yet.
What did they reveal about the way the business is actually performing?
What they revealed is that this business is $1 billion business and that it is performing extremely well. So before this year, before 6 months ago, all we knew about was a company called Mecca Brands. Every year, albeit late, they would report their results and, perhaps they would report, I think my notes tell me they reported $168 million in profit over the last sort of 10 years or so, which is good. But considering the growth of this business, it probably is a bit small. This year, however, we realize there's actually a larger company involved called RTCH, and that has shown in the same period of time, over about 10 years, a $900 million profit. So that's a huge difference, and it explains a lot in terms of the growth, how many more stores they're opening, how perhaps they're using the cash that they're generating to invest back into the business to keep funding more activities.
Mecca's faced a handful of legal actions from former employees, both in the federal court and the Victorian Civil Administrative Tribunal. What have you learned over the course of your reporting about the workplace culture at Mecca as a result of those legal proceedings?
I've learned, based on those legal proceedings, that the workplace culture is intense. It's high pressure. It's busy, as you would probably expect with one of the most successful retail businesses in the country. A number of the matters that I had reported on had resulted in women signing a non-disclosure agreement. Mecca is a private company. It's entitled to ask its staff to sign these types of contracts. There's no sort of issues there. What it means, though, is that the transparency around the culture inside this company is going to remain without scrutiny, I suppose, beyond what I've been able to report on so far.
You reported earlier this year that Mecca has one of the biggest gender pay gaps of any company in Australia. It's fifth on the list, I believe. Does that strike you as odd, given Mecca's customer base, by and large, is women, as you just mentioned, that a lot of the workforce is also women? And how does that factor into this broader conversation about company culture?
Yes, it struck me as particularly interesting because Mecca is a company that has always promoted women, outwardly says it is a company that supports women, not only in its sort of the sale of its retail products, but in its philanthropic efforts as well. So the values of this company are all about female empowerment and equality. When I noted the gender pay gap results, I just thought it was interesting in terms of the public message that this is a company that's about equality, but in practice, as with many other companies, retail workers who are dominated by women in this company are the lowest paid of the company. And in fact, at Mecca, a lot of their tech workers are men, and they're the ones who are paid the big bucks.
And has Mecca's performance in that space improved over the past couple of years? And what do they say about what they're doing to close that gender pay gap?
Mecca says that it has improved and that it's an active area that they're working on. What Mecca say is, we know we're not perfect, but we're focusing on progress, which we've seen in this year's results. So I think that was really interesting. It was also interesting to note Sephora's results, which you would probably say is Mecca's direct competitor in Australia, and they had a smaller gender pay gap than Mecca did, which again, I think is an interesting point.